We're here today to really talk about our leadership journey in multiple different facets, right? We know there's not just one way to become a leader by title or however we choose to show up. So I'll just do a quick intro about me. You can always use the QR code as well. But I am a recent entrepreneur, if you will. I have my own consulting and coaching practice called Chaska Consulting, which is actually Quechuan for Bright Star. And I'm Peruvian by heritage, so it's kind of a little homage to my English. But I've always had experience within the for-profit and the non-for-profit space. So you could say I'm kind of like a unicorn, and that I fall right in the middle of the spaghetti, and that I don't follow one certain track, if you will. I will let then Erica say a few words about herself.
Well, I feel like I'm a weather person. Today it's going to be hot. My name's Erica Gumieny, proud Alverno alum. So the three of us are Alverno alum. Are there any Alverno alums in the room? Nice. I have my own business, Pivotal Point, because we like to say the word pivot a lot. So I do consulting and training and speaking and moderating, and I have a podcast called The Funny Kind. So you should subscribe because I have a podcast coming out with Claire Becker next week where we're going to talk about a lot of the things we're talking about today. So looking forward to the conversation. Tammy? Oh.
Yeah. We'll get her roped in when she comes in. So Erica, would you share just a few thoughts about your journey in leadership and think about it in the spaces of corporate, business owner, and community?
Sure. But wait, look who's here.
So Tammy, we're doing quick intros to set the stage.
All right. Am I up?
Yes, you are.
We're just going to awkwardly look at
Hi, good morning again, everybody.
Good morning.
So I am Tammy Belton-Davis. I lead a government relations brand management firm. We've been in business for about 14 years. My real claim to fame is that I have an amazing, he's starting his junior year at Marquette, my son. And the reason why that's really my claim to fame is because everything that I do in turn, and I'm catching my breath, everything that I'm doing, both professionally but also personally, my commitment is really rooted in raising a black male son who is now moving into adulthood, who is an adult. And so the world that I see, the opportunities that I have to make an impact is really influenced on what it means to show up authentically being you and what it shows up to be in a world that doesn't always accept you for who you are. And so I will leave it there until we continue our conversation.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so she asked about what my journey has been, and I feel like, how many of you remember the video game Frogger?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like that's kind of my career journey. You know, I kind of go this way, and then that changes. So I've had a lot of reimaginations in my career. I've been in different fields. I've been in transportation, association management, a lot of my time spent in healthcare, and now an entrepreneur where I'm learning how to do like video editing, and which is a lot harder than you think it's going to be. So I like a challenge, and I like to stress myself out. So I feel like I've always been in a sales, business development, leadership role throughout all of my career. So, but it's harder to sell yourself than I thought it would be. You know, I can sell somebody else's product, but when you're selling yourself, that's a little bit harder. So that's something I'm working on.
Yeah, it's always like, how do you chew your own horn without blowing it?
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you recognize?
The humble brag is complex.
Like recognize your accomplishments so you can, again, ask for 100% of what you want 100% of the time without it seeming coming across as like ostentatious or verbose, right?
Totally.
Tammy, you want to share a few thoughts about your leadership training?
Ooh, all right. So can I not bury the lead and tell you what the end games look like? Sometimes we take people through this journey. Oh, I've been through all these things. I am living in what I feel like is a thriving life. I love that that was a question that was posed to the panel because I am in every space that I want to be. So every space that I am currently in is a space that I want to be in. So that is the boards that I serve on, it's the client work that I take, it's the house that I'm living in right now, it's the family that I have, it's all of these are areas that feel very much so like I'm aligning to what my purpose is on this planet, because I understand my why. I understand what my purpose is. I work in my passion every day. It doesn't mean that I don't want to tear my hair out. It doesn't mean that I don't get depressed or there's anxiety that exists and all the things, but I've created now this pathway of really wherever my feet are planted. Even today, the choice to say yes to being on this panel is because I have the opportunity to share with you all part of my journey, but also the opportunity to hear and receive from you. That's hugely important to me. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm the talking head and I've got all the answers and look at me, I've created this path and follow me. No. We are on a continuous journey of learning and living and developing, and part of that has been because I've been very intentional with where I put my energy and where I put my effort and the kinds of projects and people and relationships that I choose to be in. I recognize that that is a point of privilege. I am fully aware that that is a point of privilege, but I have worked really hard to get to that place where I can work and play and do the things that I choose to do, which ultimately for me is about change and impact. And so when I think about like what are those lessons along the way, a lot of this stuff that the conversations that were happening this morning, not only with Kathy, who provided the keynote, but the panel, was really about intentionality. It was about mentorship. It was about making, decisions that are right for you, and all of that is like right on the money. And then there's the piece of choosing you. Like I choose me. I choose to be authentic in all the things. I tell every board that I join, you get all of this. Like you get all of it. You get my background, my baggage, my lived experience. You are getting all of me. I'm not hiding. And I think probably because I turned 50 a couple years ago, there's a certain level of like, yeah, this is who I am. And I am choosing to be in the fullness of all that. I think a little bit of that has to do with age, but it also has to do with I am not playing when it comes to being effective and being intentional and impactful about how I show up in the world and the kind of impact that I choose to have. And that is a choice about choosing you.
There's so many nuggets. I could pull threads from them now, but thank you. And I'll share just a little bit about the corporate business owner and community involvement. I've had experience in the corporate space and have changed 100 degrees in regards to the industry. So I was in telecom, and then I pivoted to financial services, and then I was a managing director and had to earn 6 or 7 series licenses in a matter of 6 months. I'm like, why am I learning something? 500 page books. And then pivoted to retail, right? So very opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But then also like, why not? What can this opportunity provide to me? What can I learn about this? This is, as I was having conversations with others, like as the opportunity presents itself, why not take that risk? Why not ask the question why? If the opportunity is lateral or promotion, there's more to learn, more to take in, and more to choose for yourself and how you can continue to lead with that curiosity courageously. And some of it we'll get into a little bit later of doing so still by being somewhat uncomfortable and being afraid. And again, saying what's the risk of not doing it versus what's the risk of doing it, right? What's that pivot point? And then for community involvement, my parents were always give back, right? It's better to give back than to receive. If you, what's the Spider-Man quote? With great responsibility, with great opportunity comes great responsibility, something like that, right? But that's also how I live my life, right? If I have the ability, if I have the skills, if I have the perspective to contribute, how can I do that, right? And how, if I don't have it, how can I create a chair and bring someone else to share their voice, right? It's not supporting someone to have them find their voice. Everyone has a voice. It's just a matter of how do we get out of the way to provide them an opportunity to use it, right? And so as I pursue different community involvement boards and service projects, it's always about access, advocacy, and education for me. So whenever I choose a board, it's always within one, if not multiple, areas of them. And then bringing others to the fold to kind of drive that forward and understand why these organizations are important, how can they be involved, support, and if not evangelize themselves, And then as a business owner, again, I felt the universe nudging me forward to do something for myself. And so that's when I've taken all the skills from corporate, from the board service in the community, and take it forward in regards to the coaching that I do for executives as they're transitioning and transforming up the levels, as well as the consulting space within DEI, leadership dev, continuous improvement, and so on. So that it's not just stagnant, but it's continuing to move myself and others forward through that journey. So just a little background. So as we've heard in previous sessions about having allies and encouragers and whatnot, how important is it to have those sponsors, those mentors, those allies? And can you share a little bit about your journey of how you secured them, how you came across to ask, and what you've taken away from that? Can we start with you, Erica?
Sure. I think that as we're talking about, I mean, we've heard so much great advice already. I think, when I think about the encouragers and the people in my life, when that universe is, tapping you and you feel that I want to change, a lot of you are here because what do I want to do? Either I don't know what I want to do next, or I know what I want to do next and I don't know how to get there. Wherever you happen to be, having somebody to help you and encourage you and connect you is the only way. You can't do it by yourself. You're in a room full of all of these people. There's someone here at this place that is doing what you want to do and that can help you. So for me, I have, we call it kitchen cabinet and board members, so maybe I have board members in my kitchen cabinet. But I have a lot of people in my life who inspire me and who are different than me and challenge the way that I'm thinking. So for me, I don't want to just have people who look like me, think like me, act like me. I want to have people who are different. So for me, that's a big part of it. And I feel like you have to be, okay, like sometimes when I go to these events, I tend to sit there and go, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. I wish I could be like them. And you have this like false story that you're telling yourself that they have it all figured out and you don't. And that's like the biggest lie, because nobody's telling you that, oh, I forgot to shave my legs today, I almost got in a car accident, I forgot to feed my kid, I left my phone somewhere, I lost my credit card. I mean, we're all living that life, but nobody talks about that. They just say all the great advice that you can come up with. The highlight reel. We were talking about comparing your reality to somebody's post on Facebook, thinking, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. So that's what I would say. So when you really can feel confident about who you are and the brokenness that you are, but still brave enough to do it. I don't even like that saying, like, do it afraid, do it brave. Then I'm comfortable asking somebody who's amazing, because I know that she's doing it brave too, because she's in the same space that I am trying to do it. So that's what I would say. You're so welcome.
I love, first of all, I love Erica. I love Sam. And
We love you too.
Thank you. There's a lot of love. And I would say, I love that Erica started at the place of there's an assumption when you sit on a panel, when you lead, that somehow you have it all together. And I'm not going to speak, well, I'll just speak for Tammy and just acknowledge that there's work in progress, that life is a journey, that professional development, professional learning, and commitment to lifelong learning should be the heart of every leader, every human. As long as there's breath in your body, there should be this pattern of commitment to continuous learning. And I share that because part of building allies, part of getting sponsors, part of getting mentors is the willingness to both learn and glean, but also to give. Your relationships with a mentor, your relationships with mentees should be reciprocal. Like, there should be a benefit to both parties for the level of engagement. So there's an opportunity for us to learn from one another. And again, that commitment first for you and your own personal development, our own personal development has to be paramount. You do not move without the ability to be open to receiving and learning. You just can't move without it. First of all, we're living in a digital age, and you better get on board with what is happening in terms of technology and movement and the global mindset, because that is literally how our world is functioning. So there is a part of us that it is necessary for us to learn and glean. But I will also say that there is something, I'm a proud Alverno woman. If you heard me earlier today, I ride for Alverno, period. sit in this room, those of us who identify as female, there is a recognition that our male counterparts can absolutely serve as mentors and supporters and allies. And if we ever get to the place where we're like, no, it's all about women power, we will have missed the opportunity to engage. Because I am married to a beautiful black man. I am raising a beautiful black male son. I am surrounded by men all day long. My father, my brother, like they are a part of who I am, right? And so if I'm not recognizing that there is something that I can also glean from my male counterparts, that is an important part. And I will tell you that some of the best allies, some of the best cheerleaders, people have referenced personal boards, kitchen cabinets, all of that, have been males for me. And I'm going to even tell you that as a black woman, how many white men have championed for me. And so there is a myth, I think, at times that somehow we can't move, and that is, I mean, there's data to support that there is definitely a glass ceiling that we are shattering in many, many places. But I want us to recognize that allyship, sponsorship, mentorship can show up in all shapes, forms, sizes, positions. And most importantly, we didn't ground this, I'm not sure because I might have missed it, we did not ground this conversation in even having a definition of leadership. And leadership is not about our position. It's not about our title. It's not about the fact that we made it to the C-suite or we own our own business or we're doing anything. It is about influence. You can influence right where you are. So this aspirational, like I'm trying to hit this ladder, lead and influence and move right where you are. And that also attracts those that are that can be supporters of your leadership journey.
I just want to add on to that. Did anybody see Pink when she was here in concert? Okay, like best concert I've ever seen in my whole life. Okay, she's amazing. And the thing that I loved about her the most is not only is she this amazing talent, but she shared the stage with other people that were amazing talent. Like I've never seen before. Like, and so, like, I'm like, that's confidence. Is that I work so hard and I'm so good at what I do that I'm not intimidated by you showing up and being the very best that you are. I mean, that's leadership. Have you had a boss, have you ever had a boss who competes with you and tries to keep you down? That's not, you're never going to shine with that. You're never going to be able to, you can't beat your boss. So you either have to step around or step out in situations like that or work through it. But that to me, that's a leader, is to say, I see the greatness in you, and I want to, like when we say I give back, I want to give forward. I want to help you be all that you can be. And that to me, that's the best part, is sitting by watching a whole room of people that I might have pumped up.
Right, exactly. It's like, as we define leader as like a peer leader, thought leader, leader by title. It's not just leader as a piece of paper, right? Or like joining the board or like on a just by title. But it's like, how are you leading a team and kind of essentially working your way out of a job because you're finding and building that successor through intentional conversation and development. And it's having that humble leadership, that servant leadership, or that compelling responsibility for those that you are responsible for to help them grow and drive within where they want to go. And it's about, again, to your point, recognizing your own strengths, but recognizing your weaknesses and opportunities to be like, hey, you're great at that, run, right? And it's not a knock on my abilities as a leader where I can shine, but I want to put shine and have you run for that. And then as you do that work, that's how you secure sponsors. It's not like I can run up to Tammy and can you sponsor me? They're like, what? Who are you talking about? You can do that as being securing a mentor. But like, why do you want me to be a mentor? Why do I need a mentor? What do I want to work on? What's the GUI center that I need to really dig into that's going to be hard work, right? The soft skills is a misnomer. It's hard stuff to work on, right? But it's through your work ethic, it's through taking those stretch responsibilities, it's taking those leaps of saying why not and just doing that work is where you can automatically secure those sponsors, those shadow advocates that I like to call them, because then they see how you are as a leader, where you rise, where you shine, and how you are pushing yourself, and they say, I want to vote and support that person where they're not, right? I I can speak on their behalf. I can vouch. Let's put Sam here, let's put Tammy here, let's put Erica here, because they need the opportunity where I can speak on and advocate for them when they're not in the room. And that's how you can secure those encouragers, those allies of any diverse dimension. Again, too, I've had old white men be great sponsors of mine that I've never even known about. But it's having that consistency of continuing to challenge and having that curiosity and asking for what you want is where you can continue to build that persona and align your values of how you're perceived to actually how you are perceived, right? You have that alignment. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how would you navigate this perceived ladder of life where you think it's a straight shot, but it's never the case? Share a little bit of that. Well, what do you have to say, Tammy?
There is no straight shot. I think we all acknowledge that life, there's ebbs and flows, but there's dark turns, there's swift pivots. I think the pandemic, I feel like there's always the conversations of what is life like now after we have experienced the global shaking that our world undertook, and I would absolutely acknowledge that. I think there was an international look at racial reckoning that happened for the rest of the globe, not for people of color. And so I think that there's a lot of layers in terms of, how our world is being framed and shaped now that is influencing who we are now, and that is causing us to be different. And I think the piece that I take away from life shifting is that I have to remind myself that my self-care and self-preservation is paramount. I love that I have the ability, as I opened up by saying, I get to choose the places that I put my feet. And where my feet are planted, I feel good about it. But I even have to say no in those spaces. Spaces that I love. Spaces that bring me great joy. That probably bring recognition and leadership and all of that. But my self-care, which, by the way, I have not mastered. So there were lots of nuggets that I was pulling away from today. But it's recognizing that life is unpredictable. But what is the alternative? And so when we continue to put those things in perspective, that life is meant to be enjoyed, and so we have to take time, right, to enjoy. Take time to step away from that which, is about drive and leadership and motivation and getting to the next level. Like, I'm not telling you to lose your ambition. I'm not trying to be a dream killer, but I'm also trying to say the balance of recognizing how important self is and your care and you living in an authentic way is critical, because life is on life, right? And there are days that life is life and a lot more than we anticipated that it should and could, and sometimes it feels like we get knocked off our mark or our square, and we do. But the opportunity to get back up and say, I'm coming back, because I got purpose. Because there's something that there's a motivation, there's some goals that I want to achieve, recognizing that is also the balance with preserving you and taking care of you.
When we talked about the ladder, I said it's really more like a pinball machine than a ladder, you know what I mean? Because it's like sometimes you think it's just, like you said, it's not a straight shot. And things happen and you get flung all over the place, and many people, like I see Ashley here who's going through the MBA program at Alverno, and we have Linda who's our associate dean of business school at Alverno, and as educators, and I'm teaching and doing some work at Alverno, and our goal is to help students, find their career, find their this, and it's like our society is obsessed with this arrival, and it's not true, because have you reached that point where you're like, all I want is this, and then you get there and you're like, oh, okay, well this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's awful.
No.
All right, now I want that. And you get there and you're like, wait a minute, no, that's awful too. Wait, what is this? What? So then you're like, I don't even, and then there's this like funk that you get in when you should, and that's where your board of directors, your friends, and I have like different roles for my friends. Like I see Jamie over there who's a huge, like the kindest person, and I know there's many kind people here, but this woman, go to her session next. She is amazing, and when you see her, it's like you feel so loved, and that is such a gift. And so when I'm feeling like I've fallen down all the rungs of the ladder, says, no, you're awesome, you're amazing, you can do this. Here, what can we do for our next step? Because if you don't reach out in that moment, time can go by. And it's like in a sentence of ... And then you're like, when you come out of it, you're like, well, that was a waste of 3 months, right? So I would just say that if you feel that then, you stop it. Because you are going to be where you are no matter what. So you've got to build contentment and joy with how much you weigh and how you look and who you are in this moment. And then I feel like stuff comes to you. Because now you're like, I'm not desperate. I'm open and I'm welcoming, and I like it's growth versus depletion. Like if will you fill my cup, then I'll be happy. So.
And then can I think Erica just mentioned about the kind of people that are in her lives, like Jamie is her cheerleader. I see a few African American leadership program, ALM folks in the room. I see you. And there is a session that my dear friend Janine Edwards does around personal boards. And she talks about who needs to be, what is your personal board of directors? Oftentimes we think, is it the person who just gives us advice? Sure. But your personal board of directors should have a cheerleader, should have a person who has the lay of the land. It should be a drill sergeant, so that person that's on you to help you achieve your goals, that is advocating for you, that often is telling you things, maybe not as delicately or nicely, but they are driving those things. So your personal board of directors, your kitchen cabinet, however you describe who those people are, should have a diversity of roles in your life as you are navigating this ladder. You need the people who are just the joy bringers. Erica is that person. I don't know how she ever not has joy, because she embodies humor and joy forever. I would definitely put myself in the drill sergeant space often, because I am about order most of the time. But I would say that you need the people around you that can hold you accountable to those goals, who can pick you up on those days that you're just feeling like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it. But also those people who have a lay. They have an understanding of what the landscape looks like. Maybe it's an industry peer or an industry boss or mentor who understands the industry that you are in and can give you some navigation skills. Or perhaps it's somebody who understands how corporate world or the Milwaukee economy works. You want that level of diversity on your board of directors. And again, if your board of directors is only including the people who are like, you're amazing, you're great, you're missing some components to that. And it's great to have those folks that will encourage you, but you also need the ones that will hold you accountable and that will help you to goal set. So I just wanted to punctuate how important I think when you navigate life and the ladder, having all of those individuals, and it takes time. There may be some people who are doing this indirectly for you that you haven't even identified, like they kind of are on my personal board of directors. I never told them that, but I kind of see them as my accountability partner. At some point you want to formalize that. At some point you want to let folks know that you'd like them to be a part of your personal board. And again, it is about the relationship. Can I just say one last thing while I'm talking about personal board of directors? Mentorship opportunities are not just about you going up to a person and saying, can you mentor me? If you come to me and say, can you mentor me? I'm probably not going to have the best response, because I want the courtship. So before we formalize this thing, can we just break bread? Can we just maybe just have a cup of coffee? Or maybe a 20-minute Zoom call before we actually become mentor and mentee? Because I believe that relationships matter, and maybe you don't want my style of mentorship. You may see something, but I may be able to give you, other support in other areas. So make sure as you are thinking about who are the mentors and who are the people that I want to glean from, that you develop the rapport and the relationship first before you formalize the marriage.
Thank you. a lot of in there, again, we could talk about this stuff for hours, right? And pulling on a thread that Eric had mentioned, if I was to reference pop culture as of the last few days, we didn't get this far to only get this far, right? So some people may understand the reference, but it's also recognizing how do we find that our personal validation is step one, right? We're not looking for the external to drive our value. And that's just frosting otherwise. Not pursuing the recognition, not pursuing the accolades because it's going to validate who you are or your sense of self-worth or your importance. But that's just frosting in my mind. You have to be solid first to drive forward, to question yourself of who do I want to be? Have a mentor. Why do I want Tammy? What do I need to work on? Why does this matter to me? How do I do the hard work? How do I ask for help from Eric if I'm having a hard day or I need help with an outfit? What do I do? But it's having that sense of again, we always talk about having weakness and asking for help are not mutually synonymous or exclusive. It's recognizing where you need the help and being able to ask for it from your personal board, which actually shows a sign of strength and high self-awareness to be able to verbalize and articulate what it is that you want, where are you falling short, where do you shine, and where do you need some additional buoying from those cheerleaders and what have you. I know you touched on this a little bit before we open into Q&A, but how do you cut through the noise then? How do you cut through those intrusive thoughts that we always come to, that come throughout the course of the day and kind of give away from the shoulda, coulda, woulda that always enter our brain all the time?
I think for me, I'm a super high extrovert. For those of you that have done Myers-Briggs, I think I'm 110% extrovert. Shocking. I know. So COVID for me was super hard. So I would just have meetings with all the negative voices in my head all day long, And so spend too much time alone, I can get kind of funky. So for me, the doing it brave for me means doing something, because I can overthink more than anybody in this room, I guarantee it. I'll compete with anybody. I can just think myself right out of doing pretty much anything and sit there feeling busy. You almost feel like you've done a lot and you've done nothing but think. So for me, I have to have an action and I have to get something done, and then it flips for me, because then I'm busy. So if you're working in a regular job where you have tasks that you have to do and you're not running your own business, that's easier to do, I feel like. But when you're running your own business, and Jamie's nodding over there, and I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, it's much more difficult to hold yourself accountable when you kind of should do stuff. But you don't have to. You could watch Netflix. You could. Nothing terrible is going to happen, right? So for me, it's work and action. Then I feel better. So having a really strong time management system. I've recently started doing that Pomodoro where you do 15-minute bursts of work and then you break. So and please watch our podcast with Claire. If you do not have a coach, and people think, oh, it's so expensive. How much do you spend at Target or on Amazon? How many brown boxes are delivered to your house?
Add all it up. Coffee, Target, Amazon, all of it.
Right. Yeah. So investing in yourself and self-care is a theme I've heard from a lot of our speakers today. And I love that Kathy said that she was watching somebody that she really loved and they got an executive coach. And she's like, oh, maybe I should do that. Claire's an amazing coach. I know so many amazing coaches. Having that formal person is so super helpful. Getting help and having a plan that you can focus on is really good. And if you don't have your MBA, you should get it at Alverno.
Yes, thank you. Tammy.
Sorry, I almost missed that, Linda. Sorry.
I think for me, as a person of faith, it is first and foremost, how do I remove the noise as a person who does not like quiet. So I like talk radio, I like noise, I'm listening to something, podcasts, I'm listening to TV, I'm surrounded by noise. Serene for me, which is my husband, is what? It's too quiet. So I'm definitely not the expert on how to get still and how to remove the noise, because I love noise. I love a lot of sound around me, but there is a noise, there is a negative story that can often get told in our mind. minds, right? And so how do we block that out? And again, as a person of faith, my first relationship is with my Heavenly Father. And so there is prayer and there is meditation, and I'm meditating on scripture that I think is important. I'm also meditating on affirmations that are hugely important to me. I live by a mantra that says, to whom much is given, much is required. And so every day I'm like, oh my God, you've given me all of these gifts, Lord, and you're requiring me to do so much. And then I'm reminded, I don't have to do so much every day. And I don't have to do the same level of work every day. And that time to acknowledge that, number one, I think the noise, when we don't acknowledge that there is noise and that there's negative talk, then we will have missed the opportunity to shift the noise. So I think the first part is recognizing that I'm hearing negative. There's some self-doubt that's happening, or maybe somebody is speaking some things. So I need to acknowledge that that has crossed my mind and that it's there. So then I know what to do with it. If it does not align with who you are or who you desire to be, reject it. Now I know that sounds real easy, like, just reject it, Tammy. Just reject those words. But it's a practice, right? It is something that we have to truly be intentional to do, but it's necessary. And I will acknowledge, I think a number of people have said that particularly for women, this is harder for us because we are harder on ourselves, because to whom much is given, much is required. And so many of us are wearing multiple hats, right? As parents, as partners, as business owners, as leaders, as siblings, as you name it, right? It's all of these things. And the expectation is that we show up, we show up, we show up, and we show up with excellence every time, and some days we're not excellent. And it's okay. So the negative that says you're not good enough, you haven't earned that, you don't belong here, the othering that happens is negative talk that we have to reject. And then we that are in the spaces to create cultures of belonging have that responsibility. So we who have experienced negative talk and have experienced the negative mindset need to be creating spaces of positivity and affirmation, and making sure that we're affirming those around us so that we're creating new cultures of respect and belonging and love and support, so that we're creating those environments. Can I just share one thing? Yeah. Can I jump this one? Okay, I'm going to just share, because I feel like, yeah, this sounds great, but I want to tell you that I put this into practice with my team. We open up our meetings every week with affirmations for each other, or ways for us to get to know each other. We're supposed to have an hour-long session, and sometimes they are dedicated to all the projects that we're working on. But sometimes we're spending 20 minutes to 30 minutes out of an hour meeting affirming and lifting and encouraging and reinforcing positive thoughts. So I'm telling you, this is something that is practice, that I practice as part of my firm, because I believe so positively in creating those cultures of belonging. We need to be modeling that which we want to happen in the world. I love that. I'm hushing.
No, I love it. And I just want to add on one quick thing, and that is, I know, right? And that, so like, how many of you have self-help books? Okay? So I am like a collector of them. I don't read them, but I buy them. When that technology comes out, I'm the first one to buy that. But I did a clean out of my house, and I noticed how many books I had that were, how do I say it? They weren't affirming. They were like, something's wrong with you. Read this book and you'll be better. And I like really sat down and like, you know, that spark joy thing. I looked at all those books and I said, what if these books are making me feel bad about myself? I'm getting rid of those. And I turned it down like 75%. I was like, this culture we live in right now is so toxic. I mean, I'm absolutely confessing that I can spend, when I'm not negatively thinking, I'm scrolling on my reels. And then I look and I'm like, whoa, that's an hour. And they're all stupid. They're ridiculous. It's so dumb. What am I doing? But the culture is telling you, buy this, watch me, do this. Something's wrong with you if you just take Ozempic, or if you just do this, or if I dye my hair, or if I lose my weight, or if I wear these pants, or if I talk about noise. You know what I mean? And then we've got to stop saying yes to this stuff. Because you have everything within you. God made you perfect. So back to your point about God, he doesn't make you and then go, well, I hope you figure this out through your life and buy some books to get it all together. He makes you with everything you have. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing depleted about you. You are perfect and wonderfully made. So go out and do all the great things as you are. What if you never watched another TED Talk or positive speaker or bought another book? Would you survive? Would you have the skills to live? I mean, of course I'm saying watch all of our podcasts. Other than us.
Yes.
Everyone else.
Athena, Chaska.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, you are fine. You are good. So there's an investing in yourself and a growth mindset. And there's one thing I would say. You better love yourself. It's self-care. It's like, you better love yourself because the world is on a mission to tell you that you're not enough. And we've got to stop that.
That's good.
So,
Wow.
I want to add something. I will just add quickly, if you ever are feeling emotions that are intrusive or you're kind of just getting down about yourself, give yourself a timeline, right? Don't sit in those feelings for too long. Give yourself 24 hours for like what I like to call a pity party.
Yeah.
And then you're out. Then you have to come up with a plan and figure out what you're going to do next, right? Feel those feelings, recognize them, honor them, but also don't identify with them. Right? Like see yourself as an observer of those emotions and saying, why am I feeling this? And then what can I do differently about it? Okay, I know I'm getting the real from Linda. So, do we have any questions from the group? Oh, yes. Okay, in front, please, yes.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So the pivot from, no pun intended, the pivot
well,
from
pivotal point out. That's great, yeah.
corporate to your own brand, like how was that transition? Did you stay in the corporate world and then transition to your own businesses? How did that look for you guys?
For me, because I know you're farther along than I, since I'm still new, that was really difficult.
Yeah.
Because there's so much fear in, like, I've always been in sales. I should just do sales. What are you doing? You're leaving a whole career of knowing what you're doing, and now you're going to step into this. What are you doing? Like, super, like, had my feet in both for a while, and then I found that I just couldn't give it my all, so I just, like, somebody said today, like, who are you now? How are you redefining yourself? So when I talk about myself, I don't say that even though I said it before, I try not to say that I've been in sales, I've been doing this thing, because I want to reinvent who I am. So for me anyways, I felt like I have to say who I am now and not look back.
Yeah, I will just say, I echo Erica's sentiments, and I will, part of the brand for me was that I get to cast a vision for where I want to go and have people follow that vision versus me following a corporate vision or some other organization. And I've been fortunate that the brand and vision that I've created, people actually want to follow, and they join me on that, and that's been the big blessing.
And for me, yeah, it was scary, but I'm like, I also know I can do this. Because I've been doing it on the side for a minute, and people seem to want to hear what I have to say, and feel like I can add value. But doing so bravely and saying, I can still do this, but you can't split intentions either. Right? And so you're like, I'm going to do all corporate, but maybe I'll dabble over here. Right? But it's having split intentions means you're dividing into, your focus. And then you can't really go all in and really be purposeful. And you're kind of operating on a default and this illusion that you're either safe in corporate. How many times I see, like, we're changing the direction. You're not safe in corporate. It's a perceived safety net, but you have more safety because you can then control your narrative and your future on your terms. But again, it's up to you how you have that support and recognizing the support that you need. One more question. Okay, who wants to choose the question? I don't want to have all that responsibility.
I saw hands go up in the back early though.
Okay, yes.
Especially in male-dominated spaces, women can be perceived as having different communication styles and presences than men, which can, I think, hinder a woman's ability to be viewed as a driver. I think a lot of times about this action. What does driving mean to you in that context?
So for everyone that may not have heard, it was a reference of how do you drive with different kind of styles and create that sense when other people may perceive you differently across the gender spectrum.
I'm going to tackle that one because I think it's a good question. Number one, I think you have to, number one, want to surround yourselves by males when you are in a male-dominated industry. And I do a lot with real estate developers and have learned that I gotta be authentically me. I gotta show up in the space being who I am. I can't really compromise that because I have, a few personalities moving. And I choose not to have a few personalities moving at the same time. But I think recognizing how men communicate is very different than how women do. And that is broad brushing, but there is a way, there is a dynamic in cutting through the noise. My male allies and brotherhood, they are very direct with me. Sometimes they cut. It doesn't feel good. They don't massage it all the time. Oftentimes it is very, very clear what those expectations are. So I think sitting at the table is understanding the ground rules. Understanding the rules of engagement is hugely important. That's not just for male-dominated society or workplaces, but it's across industries. Like, how do people communicate? How do they engage? How do they have, tough conversations and recognizing how you speak that language, but ultimately being consistent in who you are and being authentic in who you are. Because if you try to do something different, it's not going to work. But understanding what is that culture and that level of communication, I think is critical.
We're at time, so I'll tell you later.
Thank you.